Check out these performances from the multi-track master of the Rolling Stones' Gimme Shelter. Charlie Watts on drums with Jimmy Miller on percussion. Keith Richards riffing away in open E tuning. Bill Wyman on bass. And the master of attitude, Mick Jagger on vocals.
Ooh, see the fire is sweeping out the street today.
So this is one of my top 5 Jagger and Richards songs, my absolute favorite Stones performance. So what is it about the songwriting, performing, arranging, and production that makes this recording such a landmark? Stay with me to go inside Jagger and Richards' gritty masterpiece, Gimme Shelter, because together we are gonna blow up the song.
Gimme shelter.
Hey, welcome back to the channel and episode 2 of Blow Up the Song. So in this series, I take some of the greatest songs and recordings and blow away the veneer of the final mix. We listen to individual tracks so you can hear all the building blocks, how the music got arranged, performed, and recorded. So if you like this series, please do take a second to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know when new episodes come out. All right, episode 1 featured the Beatles, so episode 2 has to feature the Stones. Gimme Shelter was recorded in 1969, basic tracks at Olympic Studios in London, and overdubs at Sunset Sound and Elektra Studios in LA. It's the opening cut on the LP Let It Bleed, released in December 69. So people often call Gimme Shelter apocalyptic, and I totally agree. So where did this intensity come from? Well, the Stones were in major turmoil in 69. Their guitarist Brian Jones, one of the original founders, was so heavily addicted to drugs, he was either absent from recording sessions or he couldn't even play. So the band actually fired him during the Let It Bleed sessions, and he died less than a month later. So there's that. A second, Keith Richards was dating Anita Pallenberg, and he became convinced she was having an affair with Mick. So you can add some mistrust and jealousy to the mix. And then there's the big picture, the whole peace, love, and dope mythology of the 60s, coming to this disillusioning end with assassinations, Vietnam War, racial tensions, Mick did a Rolling Stone interview back in 1995, and he said, "That's a kind of end of the world song, really. It's apocalypse. The whole record's like that." And I mean, the very first chorus is, "War, children, it's just a shot away." So, everything about life was intense for these guys, and the songs and the performances on Let It Bleed really capture that. I think it's the darkest of their legendary 4-album run, which started with Beggar's Banquet in 68, Let It Bleed in 69, Sticky Fingers in 71, and Exile on Main Street in 72. All right, time to blow up Gimme Shelter. Let's start by giving credit to Keith, who had the initial inspiration. So he was sitting at a friend's apartment in London. And as he tells the story, he has an acoustic guitar in his hands, and suddenly the sky goes completely black, and an incredible monsoon comes down. Quote, "It was just people running about looking for shelter. That was the germ of the idea. We went further into it until it became, rape and murder are just a shot away." It was actually an early version with Keith singing the lead vocal. Check this out. Very different feel. So it might be surprising now, but Gimme Shelter was not a hit song. It wasn't even released as a single. The album made it to number 1 in the UK and number 3 in the US, but if you never heard the album, you never heard the song. Somehow, I existed for 10 years without hearing Let It Bleed. I can't believe it, because I listened to all kinds of other Stones songs. But in 1979, my high school friend, Charlie Tinkham, and I took this backpacking trip we called the Epic Journey. And I guess what made it epic was we were crossing the country in my Chevy Vega station wagon. No AC, and honestly, it felt like it could fall apart at any second. So it was pretty epic. Anyway, we were on a back road in Wyoming. We stopped at a gas station, and there was this box of beat-up 8-track tapes for sale. Now, my Vega just happened to have an 8-track player, so when Charlie saw the Stones' Let It Bleed for $1, he said, "We're getting this. This is a masterpiece." If you say so, I'd always liked the Stones, and I trusted Charlie's taste. So he pops in the 8-track, and Gimme Shelter is the first song. It starts with Keith's insistent guitar riffing. So he's tuned to open E, but he's playing in the key of C sharp. So he goes from C sharp to the major flat 7th B to the major flat 6th A. All major chords. Right away there's this unsettling feeling like, what key are we in? So the intro goes on for 49 seconds and everything just keeps adding to the tension. So on the multi-track, Bill Wyman plays 4 bars of this really cool high melodic bass part that I'd never heard before. Check this out. They actually cut that out of the mix, and I assume that was to make the impact of his low part coming in more dramatic. So once he comes in, he mainly just hangs on C sharp while Keith moves up and down. You got the background vocals singing these mysterious oohs drenched in reverb. Pretty sure it's Mick and Keith in falsetto. Quasi-Latin sound of the producer Jimmy Miller playing the gyro, and then Charlie Watts' snare hits bring in a straight-ahead beat, and that continues all the way through the song. While that's going on, Keith noodles around on various lead guitar tracks. Overall, this intro is a perfect example of why musicians have such differing opinions about the Stones. There's this ragged sloppiness, but it's also full of emotion and spontaneity. So people either seem to love it or hate it. I'd love to know what you think. So all Keith's noodling culminates in one little riff that perfectly sets up Mick's lead vocal.
Ooh, the storm is threatening my very life today. If I don't get some shelter, oh yeah, I'm gonna fade away.
I mean, that is beautifully recorded, killer reverb. It's really one of those defining vocals of his career. I mean, really maybe of all rock and roll. So, what guitar is Keith playing? I always thought it was a Les Paul, but it turns out he was playing a big, hollow body Matan SE777 made in Australia. Now, he says some guy whose name he doesn't even remember stayed at his apartment once, left in a rush, and left the guitar behind. So there you go. It's the same guitar he used on Midnight Rambler. So the Matan apparently barely made it through the recording process. There was a Guitar World interview where Keith said, on the very last note of Gimme Shelter, the whole neck fell off. You can hear it on the original take. I was hoping to hear it on the isolated tracks, but unfortunately, I couldn't find that. So buried in the mix is a piano part played by a very well-known Stones sideman, Nicky Hopkins. And I gotta say, hearing it alone strikes me as a little twinky, but it does sit just fine in the mix, so see what you think. On most of the choruses, there's some powerful counterpoint between Richard's rhythm guitar and Wyman's bass. So Keith is playing this low-high pattern. He's going, right? Low-high, 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 low-high. Okay? And then Wyman is doing a high-low pattern. He's going, bam, 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 bam. Interesting. So check that out. Now, my favorite thing about Gimme Shelter isn't anything we've heard yet. It was actually an afterthought. So imagine this. It's around midnight. The Stones are mixing the song. And the producer, Jimmy Miller, says, you know, I hear a girl on this track. Can we call one? So there's an LA producer, arranger, keyboard player, guy who is often at Stone sessions, a guy named Jack Nietzsche. And he says, yeah, I know someone. So he calls this backup singer, a woman named Mary Clayton. She's pregnant, she's already tucked in bed, her hair's in curlers, but she answers the call. And she drags herself down to the studio, and in just a few takes, nails one of the most earth and ear-shattering vocal performances I've ever heard. So Mick sings the first verse alone, but then Mary joins him on harmonies for the next verse and all the choruses.
Oh, children, it's just a shot away. It's just a shot away. Whoa, children, it's just a shot away. It's just a shot away.
She just adds a whole different level of soul. So there's a little breakdown where they add maracas to the rhythm track, very Stonesy. Mick plays some basic bluesy harmonica parts, and Keith plays kind of a solo, but it's really more unsettling, goofing around than it is impressive. And then all of a sudden we hit the truly apocalyptic rape and murder section. So Mary Clayton says she recorded one take in her standard register, but she was really thinking about the intensity of the lyrics, you know, rape, murder, it's just a shot away. And she decides to sing the next pass at the top of her vocal range to just blow them away. When she sings the final rape and murder phrases, she's like at 110%, you know, and her voice cracks just perfectly a couple of times. If you listen to this closely, you're going to hear Mick shouting, woo, because he knows she's just smoking and she's taken the song into the stratosphere. Those are the most prominent, most important female vocals on any Stones track ever.
They said, no, don't do it again. We love the crack. We love the crack. Leave it in, leave it in. Can you do it again? I said, sure, I can do it again. So when I took on a song like that, to sing, give me shelter, please give me shelter from the racism, from the war, from all the craziness that go on, the police, from everything that's going on in the world today. Can you please give us all, we really need shelter. And I was really like pleading to God, you know.
So she only needed about 3 takes to just nail that, and then she headed home. And sadly, that night she lost the baby she'd been carrying. So there's yet another dark and apocalyptic aspect of Gimme Shelter and Let It Bleed, Mary Clayton's miscarriage. Now in the song, after Mary's big moment, there's still another verse and a chorus with war just a shot away.
It's just a shot away. It's just a shot away. It's just a shot away. It's just a shot away. It's just a shot away.
And finally, there's a little bit of redemption while they sing, "Love, sister, is just a kiss away."
I tell you, love, sister, it's just a kiss away. 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 Kiss away. Kiss away.
And the song ends with the band jamming into a classic 60s fade out. So when I listened to these isolated tracks, I got as excited as I did the first time I heard Gimme Shelter blasting out of my 8-track. And I gotta say, as amazing as the song itself is and the Stones' performances are, for me it's really Mary Clayton's belting that ultimately just makes it the classic you can't forget. And I think she created the blueprint for female rock belters in the 70s. I don't think we would have had an Ann Wilson of Heart or Pat Benatar or Linda Ronstadt without Mary Clayton. All right, now that we've blown it up, be sure to go back and listen to the whole song and, have fun hearing all those details you might have missed before, and just bask in how it all came together to signal the end of 60s idealism. Considering that Gimme Shelter opened Let It Bleed and it closes with You Can't Always Get What You Want, really, you gotta say rock music doesn't get any better than that. So what do you think? Please leave a comment, pass this video along to other Stones fans or to Stones skeptics. I just want to thank you for being here to blow up the song with me. These videos are really a labor of love and respect. So if you want me to blow up more, please like the video, subscribe, hit the bell, and pass this along. I do post all my videos on guitardiscoveries.com, so go check that out and get your fill of guitar, vocal, and recording inspiration. See you next time.